Lope Adila Ribalogun. I'm a journalist from Lagos, Nigeria. It's my weekly it's my weekly session on HAPS. I call it the Tab Report, and today I have another guest joining me. Ugochi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good,
Can
and
you hear
you?
me?
I hope it's good, right?
Ugochi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, I'm having difficulty hearing
I can hear you.
you. I don't know
I can
what's
hear.
going on. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Trying to
I
press
can hear
everything
you.
possible. Okay, Ugochi, I cannot hear you. Hello?
Okay. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, wow.
I can hear you.
Okay, so if you guys can give me 1 second. All right, Ugochi, just stay right there. Just take a look at my very pretty background, and I'll be right back.
Can you hear me, Wayne? Mine.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so hello, can you hear me? Before I start dancing for you guys. Okay, Ugochi, I'm having a really difficult. Okay, everybody seems to say they can hear except for me. I'm the one who can't apparently hear you. No, I'm not muting. What's the problem? Okay, so I think I'm going to have to reinvite Ugochi to this because I'm having a difficult time hearing her. Ugochi, I think your sound is off wherever it is on whatever system you're using. Please check it. The sound is off. I can't. Everybody says they can hear you. They
Can
can
you
hear you,
hear
but
me?
I
Can you
can't hear
hear me?
you.
Can you hear me now?
Hallelujah! I can hear you now. Fantastic. Fantastic. Ugochi, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for joining me, as it may be. Let me go ahead and say welcome to so many people who are already here with us. Wayne, hello. Thank you for joining us. Brett, hi, good evening. Good evening so much. Thank you so much for joining us. MC Wayne as well. Caden Chase, I believe that is. Mr. Sapphire and Steel UK as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We really appreciate this. So this is the Tab Report. And usually on Fridays from here in Lagos, Nigeria, I just go through a few big issues and stories that have come up in Lagos or in Nigeria or even in West Africa, as it may be. And I've had some guests, some of my colleagues I've worked with and others I haven't worked with, but people in the media industry in Nigeria. I've had some guests in the past few weeks, and Ogochi is my latest guest tonight. Ogochi, how are you?
I'm good, and you, Tolu? Good to see
I'm
you.
great. I'm great. It is really good to see you. I would introduce her, but I think I'm going to let her. I think I'm going to let her go ahead and do the introduction. She's also new to the HAPS community as well. So this is like her first live, her first introduction. So she'll tell you guys a bit about herself. Ugochi, go ahead. Tell us about a bit about you.
Okay, hi everyone. I am a freelance journalist right now. Before I became a freelance journalist, I worked for TVC News, which is one of Nigeria's biggest news stations in Nigeria. I know what's happening. I try to catch up with what is happening. I also make movies around environmental issues. So I'm just basically the green girl, the green advocate.
Advocate.
Yeah. So yeah, that's who I am, and I moved from Nigeria recently to France, and yeah, that's all you need to know about me so far.
For now, we'll probably get into more details later. But I met Ugochi through her work concerning the environment. We have a few mutual individuals in the environmental conversation and section here in Nigeria in common. So off and on, we've known of each other throughout the years. We haven't still worked together, but we call ourselves colleagues because we have been able to support each other throughout the years and, just share a bit of pieces. I'll keep all the other things behind closed doors. But Ugochi, well, Gochi, we have a few stories to get through. I know you also have a few things from your side that you want us to get into. So I want to start here and let's talk about vaccines. Now, I know because of the coronavirus and COVID-19, the conversation around vaccines has been really, really massive. And it was reported earlier this week that Russia had apparently given Nigeria a few batches, I don't know, maybe one batch or two of its vaccine that it says it has created and it says it works. Then I think just about a day or just not even maybe a whole day afterwards, the Ministry of Health here in Nigeria walked back on that and said, no, Russia did not actually give Nigeria the vaccines, but the vaccines are with the Russian embassy in Nigeria. But they have not yet been handed over to Nigeria. So what's the conversation concerning vaccines from your end? Because here, I don't want to say we've been burnt, the Madagascar situation and the Madagascar drink that was meant to cure corona. So people are a bit more skeptical now when anybody says they have a vaccine or they want to give it to us for whatever reason it may be. So what's the situation? What's the conversation around vaccines on your side?
I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing. A lot of people are eager to have the vaccines because, as it is, some areas in France are beginning to probably go back into lockdown, not outright lockdown, but cases are increasing by the day. Absolutely, cases are increasing. So a lot of people are really eager to have this vaccine, so that people can get back to what we call normal life, if that's still possible. But also there's caution. People are also concerned about the safety of the vaccines, just like everyone across the world, are concerned. But my particular concern about Africa is because of these comments that we've heard, even though the World Health Organization came out to say we cannot allow Africa to be used as a test ground. So for me, my concern as an African has always been, are we going to be used, to test these vaccines? And then the comments about Russia. Comment about Russia, and then they said that that's not true. But Nigerians, of course, they would say, oh, because we probably screamed, and then you came out to say this isn't true. Who really knows what the truth is? So from here, there's been definitely some people who are concerned about the safety of the vaccines, and also those who are eager to have these vaccines say, I'm ready to take the vaccines. If I need to volunteer, for the test, I'm ready to volunteer. And then there are also right now antibody tests, to find out in France, to find out if you've been exposed to the virus. There are also tests for people. The government will reimburse you if you're able to get this test done. So there are lots of, and that's the reason why people are saying there are higher numbers of people who have COVID-19 because there is more testing, compared to before when people didn't have access to tests. So I watched the news today, and there were long queues of people across, France trying to get tests. And it's also the same thing. And, we live right at the border. So Switzerland and Germany, these countries are also concerned. If the cases increase in particular countries, there will be, the point is they don't want to lock the borders anymore. They don't want to close the borders anymore, but they are saying that they could. There was an announcement today, that got people worried. Will the borders be closed again? But the announcement today says the regions close to the borders would be allowed to still cross, those borders. So generally there's a concern about the increasing numbers and, if the vaccine, how soon the vaccine will be out for those who really want to have it.
And I know in terms of the antibody test, we're also hearing from medical individuals that the antibodies don't last as long as for many other viruses or infections that they suspect. So you could actually, we're seeing more stories about cases of actual reinfection. So it really scares people as to the potential of this. But there's also the other hand of, do people trust Russia to be the one to create and to distribute a vaccine? Then you have the Nigerian factor, the situation we went through with Madagascar. And as you said, many people don't trust the government. So maybe it was the outcry from the citizenry that made the government to say, no, 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 wait, we don't have the vaccine. That's actually not what's going on. So there's so many issues around that. And again, especially about the comments. A lot of Africans are weary about being the testing ground, the dumping ground for the vaccine. And we've seen some of these clinical trials being called off in the West when somebody, I think the last one was in the UK. I'm not sure if it was Oxford
by
or
Oxford.
Where, yes, and the trial was called off because one of the people involved in the clinical trial fell sick. So we don't have the same kind of healthcare system. We've said that, so we've acknowledged that, and a lot of people are not even sure we have the same sort of rigorous clinical trial system. And there's also historical context to our lack of trust with medical vaccines or medical trials or even whatever it may be. We know the northern part of Nigeria, the issue with vaccines has been a holdover and caused us to continue the polio situation for the longest time. It actually even got violent sometimes, unfortunately. And then we also know what happened with one of the largest drug companies in the world many years ago. That ended up in an international lawsuit. And to date, they're still settling. So we're rightly weary of anybody coming and say, I have a vaccine here, take, And I don't even know
not to talk of Russia,
or kids. And then, given some of the context of that conversation, but I don't even know if somebody said, here, take a vaccine, give it to your child. Would you give your child right now? What would make you trust a vaccine?
What has our relationship with Russia been over the years? Why? Yeah. Why is it now? Why is it the vaccine that that we need to be fast with this vaccine right now?
Yeah.
So, but they've come out to assure us that this is not going to happen, and until the third phase of the trials have been completed, the human trials. But the thing is, we need to also, as Nigerians, as Africans, begin to talk to our people in the villages, because we know that the target usually is the villagers, the people who do not have an idea, and they are paid little money, to be used as guinea pigs. So it's for us to go out and I know our NGOs are doing this, but I mean, we should go further to let them know that if people, I remember what happened during the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. We saw those viral messages, going around. If they come, so I think people are really, I think people are really aware and wary. But we should also tell them that, okay, the government has said, we've not received anything from Russia. Yeah. If for adventure you hear that people want to ask you to be used to get vaccinated, you have a right to say no. It's your choice to accept. Absolutely, it's your choice if you want to accept. But it should be signed. That it should be documented legally that you are accepting this, and you know the terms absolutely before you decide to accept.
Very true. And also, when we talk about all the vaccine and the conversations, we just also have to realize it's also an indictment of our own medical research, our own universities as well. I do know there are one or two universities working in that line, but you see the kind of activity, the kind of movement you're getting from some of the world's most premium universities. And even just, it doesn't even have to be the high level universities. People are trying. So again, for me, it's another indictment even on the university structure and the system, the medical research system that we also have, or lack thereof, that we have in Nigeria as well, even though there are apparently one or two people trying to work in that regard. So Wayne asked who the president of Nigeria is. Nigeria's president is President Muhammadu Buhari. We're going to be talking about him in the next story, because this one it's been a continuous conversation. The Russia vaccine is not approved as of now, but then again, it also concerns who is doing the approval. Russia has approved its own vaccine, but I know the WHO has been a bit leery of sort of giving it a final seal of approval. Let's say hi to Olani. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi,
so we're going to have to wait.
Yeah, and because the Russian government have not been open about their research, about the tests, about the results,
and their trials.
But the companies that have worked with them have come out to say, it's showing positive results. But of course, we know that the third phase is always important. You need to go through these phases. If you've not done the complete phases, you can actually, put this thing out. But the question is, why the rush? Why the rush?
That's the rush.
The rush to be the third part, to be the first. I understand, to be the first. But of course, safety, the health of people should always come first. We heard the big announcement by 9 pharmaceuticals across the world, and they said that they call it a historic pledge to come together to say that they've accepted that all their vaccinations or all their or whatever all their the vaccinations they're trying to come up with would have to go through scientific evidences and research before they're released. So they all came together. They said they forgot about the profits. And the big pharmaceuticals, it's all about the money, But this time around, they said we're going to come together to say right now it's for the world. It's not about the money. So that's a huge thing for the world. I hope they keep to that.
We'll see how exactly. We'll see how it plays out. And, we have there is a deserved lack of trust in some of these pharmaceuticals. We've seen the situation in the United States with the opioid crisis and the fact that one company, one family has been sued and has actually been found to be quite culpable in spearheading or in spreading or in, basically manipulating what turned out to be one of the biggest health crisis that the US has faced in recent times. So we'll see how all of that plays out. Russia, they say the vaccine is at the Russian embassy in Nigeria. We don't know if there's going to be a big handover ceremony. We don't know what it is. We've been burnt. Madagascar said they had a drink. I don't know if you guys out there heard, but Madagascar said they had a drink that cures corona. They sent us a batch. We held on to it. We also insisted on doing some testing ourselves. Ended up that the drink does not cure coronavirus. Then they wanted us to pay for the batch that they sent. It became a very messy situation in the long run, very messy. All right, so let's move on to another story.
So I want to talk about that. The Philippines, the Philippines and Saudi Arabia have already ordered a batch. You're waiting for it. They said about 1 billion doses. From these countries. 1 billion doses for the Philippines and Saudi Arabia.
From Russia. Okay, apparently maybe they might be the guinea pigs that the world is looking for, because everybody also wants to see how it turns out for the first few people that use it. All right, so let's move to another story. So Wayne asked who the president of Nigeria is, and as I said, the president of Nigeria is Muhammadu Buhari, and he's been, of course, he's in the news. He's the president. He's always been in the news. But some of the comments he made between yesterday and today have really gotten Nigerians talking. It's a very long, convoluted story, but I'm going to try to make it as simple and as short as possible. So we as a country, unfortunately, import a lot of things. We're not very heavy on the production side, whether it's food, clothes, everyday items. Nigeria, unfortunately, imports a massive amount of the things that are consumed by its citizens. And one of those things is maize, or what other people might call corn. So we've been importing maize for a number of years now. And it's said that Nigeria imports anywhere between 5.8 billion naira, which is about $15.2 million worth of maize, give or take the year, give or take how the rains, give or take whatever happens. But we import somewhere around $15 million of corn, aka maize, every single year. So the Central Bank of Nigeria, which is in charge of monetary policy, Forex, making sure that the naira and the dollar, all those things are good, recently announced that they would stop giving people who import maize dollars to do so. So these individuals would have to source this money for themselves, and that shot up the price of maize. That shot up the price of a number of things. Even now, there are concerns about what the cost of eggs will be next week for people as well. There's questions about what the cost of chicken will be, because in Nigeria, chicken in December go very well hand in hand. So people who rear chickens are already concerned about the cost of feeding them and how much they'll be able to sell their chickens come December. But that's not really where this conversation is going. So our president on Twitter yesterday went ahead to really, come down hard. And he said this about importation of food. He said that I am restating it that nobody importing food or fertilizer should be given foreign exchange from the central bank. We will not pay a kobo of our foreign reserves to import food or fertilizer. We will instead empower local farmers and producers. We have able-bodied young people willing to work, and agriculture is the answer. So kobo is our cents. Kobo is like dimes, nickels, and whatever. So kobo is the very lowest denomination of Nigerian currency. But the issue has been, he said, we have able-bodied young people ready to farm, ready to work, and the answer is agriculture. If you don't know, Nigeria has one of the largest populations in the world and growing every single day. Our birth rate is about 5.5 children per woman. Do you understand how many people that is? But aside from that, we're the most populous country on the African continent, and we have one of the largest youth populations around the world. That's over 30 something thousand, depending on who you ask. And our president says we should go back and farm. Ugochi, let me. What? I understand
Well,
the intent, but I think the
absolutely.
way it's coming about is just not landing well. What do you think? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We've always known that our president, I mean, a lot of times he quote unquote messians, the way Nigerians say
Ah,
it. Yeah.
please,
But
aka
also,
misread means he misspeaks. He probably says the wrong thing at the wrong time. I have to keep breaking it down.
yeah. So a lot of times whenever he talks, they're like, did you just say that? Did he just say that? And they also think our president is stuck in the 80s, you know.
Mm,
So with these comments, when the world is, mechanizing agriculture, doing things in different ways,
exactly.
our president is talking about. But that's not to say that there's no point in the value chain where we need able-bodied men
Hmm.
to pick the fruits,
And
whatever,
women.
men and women, to do these things. But because of the way he says these things, Nigerians don't want to hear. And then they're telling him, oh, your son is
They
also
don't.
able-bodied. What about your son? So while I understand what he's saying, I understand the fact that we need to reduce our importation, we need to,
Yeah.
look inwards. I think the way he says it, and how much are you investing really in agriculture, in people?
Mm,
A lot of Nigerians are going into agriculture. You know that. The problem is,
yeah.
you know,
The type
equipment,
of agriculture and how,
electricity,
yes, funding,
electricity,
yes,
and then there's a
irrigation,
problem with the, yeah,
and implement.
headers. That's absolutely. A lot of
Okay,
people have come out right
we need
under
to
his
talk about
tweet.
that.
Right under his tweet, someone said, "I started a farm. I started a farm, and headers destroyed my farm until today. I stopped." So imagine those kind of people, how they would receive that message from, the president. This is an able-bodied person who said, "I started a farm, but look at what happened." So it also brings the question of insecurity. What are you doing about insecurity in Nigeria? It's not about just saying, "Oh, we have able-bodied
Go
men." I
back to the
understand where
farm.
he's coming from. I
Yeah.
understand that we need to. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so on that security issue, it's a very big one. I listed a few of the issues affecting agriculture and farming in Nigeria. Seasonal farming. Even before we get to that, the majority of our farmers are small scale holder farmers, and the majority of them are women. And there are issues with women and owning of land. So you even have issues where the women will be the ones who farm the land, who are doing the majority of the hard work, but it's the men that have to represent them when it comes to negotiating prices. The women they don't literally
Opening a
own
bank
the
account.
land that they farm. Exactly, opening a bank account. We have a large percentage of Nigerians who are unbanked, and some of these people are the same farmers we're talking about. So you have that situation. You have seasonal farming. Greenhouses are not as popular as they should be. Nigeria has a wide swath of arable land. We're not utilizing that. The farmer herder situation. So herdsmen, for many who may not know the term, let's just say like they're cowboys, but they're not cowboys. They don't ride on horses. So it's a very old tradition. It's a very nomadic tradition that's spread not just around Nigeria, but you have it in the Sahel region, also in different parts of the continent. We're quite
West
used to
Africa.
seeing people who herd their cows from one place to the other. So there has been a lot of conflict in Nigeria between those who are herding their cows and the farmers who are farming the land. What people are saying is that there are situations where they have planted and they've come back and the whole farm has been uprooted because cows have walked through it without any regard to what has been planted. I saw somebody tweet about the fact that they harvested one night. When he came back the next day, the harvest had been completely destroyed and decimated. And people are putting in their money, their time, their hard work. And the president is saying, go back to the farm. But people are saying, you haven't addressed the issue of those who make us insecure. So it's not just about the cows, crossing the farms. There's also the security. There's violence that happens a lot of times in this situation. So there have been
Yeah.
deaths, there have been kidnappings, there's been cattle rustling on one side, but that's not as common as much as the decimation of the farmland. So people are saying, how do you want us to go back to the farm if you haven't addressed the clashes that are happening, the insecurity situation around that? But bigger than that for me, Ugochi, is the fact that we're in the fourth industrial revolution. We are in the Internet of Things. We're in a knowledge economy. And while I understand that he's thinking most likely in terms of the vast number of Nigerian youth that have nothing to do, we have large unemployment numbers, large underemployment numbers. Let's get them doing something. But I worry about a country that we're sending people back to the farm, but we're not updating our curriculum to be more science and technology and STEM oriented. We're not necessarily making the graduates who come out competitive on a global scale.
We're not investing in research.
Exactly. We're not investing in research. So it's good for them to farm, but mechanized farming, maybe you had 100 farmers 50 years ago. These days, 2 or 3 people can do the job of 100. So you can't expect 100 people to go back to the farm. I don't know. How do we sort of find a meeting place for this situation? Because I get the spirit of what he's saying, but the context around it and then the actual ways in which this would work.
Yeah, absolutely. We see every day young Nigerians who come up with great innovations, how to dry cassava, how to, to preserve different innovations they come up with. Some of these people have done this totally on their own. And then sometimes they just need funding to expand or to scale their business. And it's not always there. The support of financial institutions, to these people, not always there. So that's an issue. And also the issue of transportation. Many of our roads are not really good. And then you see a lot of people who, have food that they can't transport to where it's needed.
We don't have silos. We're not very good on storage of things that can be stored.
It's funny. When you travel in some countries, you find bananas or fruits, and you see it's from Ghana. It's from Kenya. I've hardly seen one from Nigeria, because these countries have taken this.
Remember a few years ago when
beans.
Okay, I'll do Ogbe, the Minister of Agriculture, when that container of yam, and we celebrated it because it had taken Nigeria so long to get to that point where we're exporting food outside of the country. What has happened since then?
And you remember our beans that was recalled. We're asked to stop exporting beans because it contains, high doses of
high levels of
pesticides. Pesticides, absolutely. So these are the issues. When the government, that's why Nigerians are really angry when they hear him. It's not because what he said is wrong, but because of the issues. They're like, this is an important issue, but this is not our problem. We want to be farmers. We want to go into farming. We want to export food. We want to make money, actually, but you're not helping us enough. You're not supporting us enough.
Do you think they get the message? Because it's not just him. Even though we had the National Fertilizer Farming Program, I know the World Bank has come in to do things with rural farmers as well. There's been loans as well. But do you really think that government gets the feedback that the people are giving it in terms of this farming and education sort of pipeline to employment for so many millions of Nigerian youth?
Tolu, as always, the government on Twitter comes across like it's listening. But what is happening on the ground? What are people experiencing? What are the experiences of, the ordinary Nigerians, on the streets, Lagos, Aba, anywhere they are? What are the experiences? That's the story. It's not the press release. It's not the Twitter, statements that they make. It's how are people experiencing, this government? How are people experiencing life here? And then, the issue with rice, when there was a ban on importation of rice, people said, oh, so the president, what rice do you eat? What rice does your family eat? Is it just for us?
Nigerians are petty. Oh.
Absolutely. So is this ban, just for ordinary Nigerians? So the question also is, if we can't get this forex, I hope, your big friends will have access to it. And then there's a monopoly, you have someone who has access to this. And then he imports all the fertilizer, he imports all the food. One person gets access. Remember, when they said people can't pay school fees, but people had access. Some people said, oh, they had access to this, for example, for the Hajj. So with this, your decree, you cut across, everyone. We need to cut across everyone, not just ordinary Nigerians who do not have the connection. That's the big question, and that's why Nigerians are usually, angry when they hear this kind of things, because they know that most times someone somewhere is benefiting from this and the rest of us wouldn't.
So there were some rumors that because of the situation, maybe 4 individuals or so had been chosen to import, and people were like, "This is exactly what you said you weren't doing." So now it sort of became a cabal, allegedly. But right now we're hearing that government saying that no, that's not happening, and people are really worried because Nigerians, if we're not good at anything else, we're good at creating parallel markets. We're very good at creating black markets because there is a massive demand. Those markets exist because there is a demand for them. If government and I think our governments need to realize they can't meet all the needs. So empower people to meet more needs. Empower more small and medium scale businesses to employ more people. They teach those people, and those people, of course, teach others. And as I'm saying this, I'm just remembering the Igbo apprenticeships system. If you've never heard about that, it's one of the I don't even know how to describe it. It's an absolutely fantastic apprenticeship system that's still in existence in Nigeria now, where you learn a trade. Then, when you're leaving the master, quote unquote, who has taught you in that trade, he gives you a certain amount of money to set up your own. So then you are able to stand on your own. And then before you know it, you bring somebody, not even somebody, 1 or 2 or 3 people, they apprentice under you, and you continue to replicate that same thing. And the money stays within the community, the money stays within the group. So you don't have a situation where people are having to go to financial institutions and, having to put down collateral of land and house and whatever it may be, sort of, tightening their own strings until they can achieve.
Yeah. I grew up knowing this.
Exactly. I need to look for that video.
Yeah, I grew up knowing this. We had some people who also, they call it Omo boy, like they serve.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not slaves, but they learn the trade. They lead many times with the master.
They learn the connections.
Everything.
They make the networks as well.
Absolutely. And then they get settled. We call it settle. You have to settle your
we call it freedom.
Yeah, it's freedom actually. So that's what it's called. And then you're giving some amount of money, even though there's been an issue with that. Sometimes the horrible ones don't end up settling these people. But I'm glad with the way the community. I mean, this is out there now. I'm sure there should be a system that monitors people to ensure that they really pay those or support those who have worked for them, who have learned the trade. So that aside.
Yeah, we can talk, and there's a whole video on that. I'm going to look for it and make sure I post it on my timeline. It's really fascinating how they sort of break down how the Igbo apprenticeship system works. And there are those situations. There's also something we call ajo, or what's the other name for it? So I'm trying to think of another name.
Yeah, we call it akawo.
You guys call it akawo. So the basic of it is, maybe you own a shop, you own a store somewhere, and from your daily earnings, somebody comes around that is trusted, and you give a percentage of your day's take to that person to hold collectively. So there are different ways that this works. The ajo can be in January, somebody takes that money, but they continue to add money. So in February, it's the next person's turn. I know I'm not explaining this well. In March, it's the next person's turn. I've done ajo, and it works. I've done ajo very well. The other one is the collective, in which you continue to put money in collectively, and you can borrow from that money. You can borrow a greater percentage against that money, and people have used it to send their kids to school. They've used it to buy land. They've used it to build houses. People have found ways around some of the
I think that's the cooperative
we have.
Cooperative organizations.
Yeah. So it's really fascinating. We have all of those things there, but we'll be telling you more later. All right, Ugochi, let's talk about COVID. It is still with us, even though some people like to pretend that it's not. I don't know what I want to say, but a lot of Lagosians are no longer wearing their mask. If they have mask on their face, it's pulled down. Right now, I think the places that force you to wear a mask are where you're going into establishments, because they also know that the state can come and shut them down. Offices, banks, supermarkets, wherever you're going in, they still insist, at least for now, that you must wear your mask, you must get your temperature checked, and you must use sanitizer. But on the average, on the streets of Lagos, people are not wearing their masks. Ugochi, are people still wearing masks in France?
Well, the question is, are they mandated to wear it, out in the streets? Here, actually, you're not mandated to wear it, as you're walking in the streets. In some parts of France, in some parts of Switzerland and Germany, it's not mandatory to wear it working, but when you are in closed public spaces, you're mandated to wear it, or you'll be fined 135 euros. That's a lot of money.
Ooh,
and then and on the buses. And on the buses, if you're caught not wearing one, you'll be fined. Yesterday, actually, I entered from the tram. I entered the train station, and this young boy, young boy, you know how they behave. He was caught. He didn't have a mask.
Wow.
He didn't have
Was
a
he
mask.
begging? Did he plead?
He was pleading. But the point is, I've hardly really seen those who come to check. But you never know. Sometimes they'll be there. Sometimes they're not there. So yes, it depends on what is mandatory in Nigeria. If they are asked not to wait, working in the streets, I mean, of course they shouldn't wait. But I think in Paris now it's compulsory to wear it anywhere, everywhere in the streets, which is very hard.
It should still be compulsory.
Which is very hard
because even me sometimes it's difficult after wearing it for an hour, even just to walk from the car park to the office. I'm like, what's this? Can we please take this thing off? But I understand at the end of the day that it's almost the most, between that and washing your hands are the two basic things that can really, really reduce your chances of getting COVID. So here in Nigeria, our numbers, official reported cases of coronavirus have been going down. We had peaks of, I think, was it 700 or thereabouts? That was like really our peak. And these days you see 100, you see 200, and that's sort of back to where we were when coronavirus really gathered steam in Nigeria. So just recently, the governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, announced that schools are going to reopen. So university students will be able to resume classes on Monday. Maybe not classes, let me just say resume school on Monday, September 14th, and then primary and secondary schools may reopen on September the 21st. They're still deciding that one, looking to see how things go. My daughter is still in nursery. I think nursery is kindergarten. So her school is still doing online, but there are a lot of parents who are weary of even primary and secondary schools reopening. What's the situation with you guys, Ugochi?
Yeah, when the schools reopened in France, that was in mid-May, a lot of people didn't send their kids back. I sent my kids back. Why? I don't know French, and they've been at home. I can't really teach them. And in France is not like the US where the schools, really went online. In France, it was just the TV. So you turn on the TV and then they watch, so it's totally different.
Are there, yeah.
Absolutely. So I couldn't so I was eager for them to go back, but I ensured they knew they had to wash their hands and they were not obligated to wear the mask. Okay, my daughter who is 7 they were asked to wear the mask, the first week. After 1 week, nobody bothered, with the kids, but the teachers would wear the mask. They would come in, they would wash. And then the funny thing is the social distancing. So they really changed things. So there are marks. And then they changed the timing. So students usually would come between 7:50 to 8 a.m. But now, SEPE or the primary 1 students would come in earlier. There's 10 minutes, different timings.
Yeah,
in between. Yeah. So they don't, the funny thing is they're all playing together.
They don't conjugate. Exactly.
Yeah, but it's funny. Yeah, when they're all playing together and then they go to the line and they hop. It takes time and then you enter, you go, your temperature will be checked and then you go wash your hands. And then sometimes I'm like, does this even really make any sense? But I mean, it is what has to be done, It's a level of.
Does it have to be done? Must we reopen schools? So we're seeing places where they are now considering lockdowns. We've seen some states in the US where the governors or mayors had to walk back on reopenings when there was certain spikes. And we've seen it. Even New Zealand, that we all applauded, after they went how many days without a case, the moment they had a single case again, they locked down again. But
even in France as well.
Must we reopen?
Even in France as well.
Schools?
Some schools have been shut. I heard about last week it was 20 schools. Now we're hearing about 30 schools have been closed down. So once anyone tests positive, the school will be shut. That's what's happening here. So yeah, but for France, they said there are lots of children who don't have access to the TV. So they really don't want them to miss out. They don't want them to miss out. Some people can afford it. Some people have TV to watch, but some people do not have access to that. So because of these ones, they decided to open up the schools. But initially, the teachers were worried as well. They were like, oh, we're going to be the guinea pigs, to try out this thing. So the first week, just a few students came. Second week, it increased a little. Third week, lots of people, had some confidence, and they started coming to school. So far, I think they've been following those measures, the safety measures. They check them. They ask them to wash their hands. Initially, they will ask them to leave their school bags, in school the first day of Monday, and then they pick it up on Friday, so to reduce the risk of, transmission.
Just to reduce, contamination and transfer.
Absolutely. So if Nigeria can also follow these protocols, if Nigeria can also follow this, follow this.
Are we talking about the same Nigeria that me and you know? The same
It's
Nigeria
possible.
where we know the parents that are in this country? Are we talking about that same Nigeria?
Where a lot of people don't believe that. Yeah.
Yes, I will say this. So this kind of measures that you're talking about, the state governor says they're still considering primary and secondary school. So those are that's your middle school, your high school, your kindergarten, and your first to fourth or fifth grade, I think it is. But we want to hear, as a parent, I would want to hear that these measures are what the state has said must be done. Then I want to be sure that the school is doing it. If the school is not doing it, parents need to be secure enough to report any school that reopens without following those necessary guidelines. So we know that, and there's a really important point you talked about, and that's the education gap. For France to acknowledge that they're also concerned about some students falling behind. You can imagine what the situation is like here. I spoke about it a few weeks ago when I talked about the WAEC exam going forward, and how when we see the results, let's be expecting private school children who were able to have online schooling during the lockdown. Let's know they're basically going to do better than students who went to a public school and didn't have access to online learning. Yes, there was some TV, there was some on TV, some on radio, but not everybody has an equal access. And a lot of governments should be concerned about the possible education gap that could be coming from this. So I want to know that the schools are prepared. I want to know that my 5-year-old, if she goes back to school, there's social distancing, because I'm thinking in a class that maybe had 20 before, you can't have 20 now. So are you going to have staggered times of day, shorter classes, and then some people come maybe 8 to 10, then you spend the next 2 hours sanitizing, then some people come 12 to 2. I want to hear those things so that I can feel confident and comfortable in possibly sending my child back to school. What do you think?
I think a lot of people are letting their guards down as well, in France, in Switzerland, in many countries, because they're like, oh, well, I think it's no more killing people as it killed people, initially. So a lot of people, I'm also a French student. I'm a student, So I went to school on Monday, and my teacher was sanitizing everywhere, and then she's elderly, and then she wears her mask. Initially she was concerned. So for 6 months as well, I stopped my classes, so I was also very happy to be back. And Tolu, sometimes, when we talk about this, let's not forget also those kids who really need to be in school. Those kids who experience sexual violence. I know you're big, sexual violence, domestic abuse. They just need somewhere to go to. So I understand, we are protecting the vulnerable, but we also need to consider these people who just have to be somewhere. They just have to leave home. They just have to be somewhere with their friends, to help them.
Yeah. I know. We'll see what happens. Monday is Monday. So if they do actually reopen universities, I will definitely have some stories for you on that. We'll look forward to seeing what the Lagos State governor says in terms of what must be done for primary and secondary schools to reopen. I know the economy is basically reopened. Cinemas are back. What is it? The international airport is open. Stores are, what is really left for us as Nigerians primarily would probably be bars, lounges, and clubs. Nigeria has a very, very active social life, especially Lagos, especially somewhere like Abuja, Port Harcourt, especially at night. Even though we have electricity issues, people are out. Maybe that's why they're out and about. But we have a very active social life, especially places like Lagos. We have event centers, halls that you can rent.
And they can't wait.
Our weddings are lavish. They're very flamboyant a lot of the times. We like hanging, we like being together, we like we like eating in groups. So those people have really suffered in terms of their profits as well. We're waiting to see what government says about how they reopen, but everything is basically reopened. It's just that aspect left. And our curfew is now 12 to 4. I don't think just say we don't have a curfew anymore. Just tell me we don't have a curfew. What is 12 to 4? What does that accomplish?
It means that the virus doesn't move at certain times, so it moves at some times. So, but Tolu, in some parts of the East, I heard my friend, she put a picture, and I said, where did you go to? She said, oh, I went for a wedding. I'm like, hold on, a wedding, big wedding?
Yes, there have been weddings. I will
some part of
confess,
Nigeria,
especially
the East, especially the eastern part of Nigeria, they don't understand what a lot of them like what virus.
Yeah.
What virus?
Yes. And I don't think I really talked about this, but I think my very first introductory live, I did mention that a lot of Nigerians felt that this is a virus of the elites, of a higher class of people, of the middle and upper class, because of how it came into Nigeria, initially spread. A lot of politicians, a lot of people that are considered average Nigerians. So they've already felt that this virus is of of the people, of the common man, as we like to say in Nigeria, on the street. So it's been really interesting to watch that. And I think that's part of the reason they're just like, why are you so afraid? There's still people who actually don't even believe there's coronavirus in Nigeria. There are people who think that, yes, okay, there's levels. There are some who don't believe that coronavirus is in Nigeria. There are those that believe that the coronavirus in Nigeria is not the same strain. That's why we don't have as many people sick or as many people dead. Then there are those that believe that, yes, coronavirus is in Nigeria, but government is, they're exaggerating it in order to make money and steal money. So all of those
things. And there are those who believe that they are covered by the blood of Jesus.
Amen. Hallelujah, somebody. We don't want to air our dirty laundry. If we tell them what happened during Ebola, let's not air our dirty laundry. Okay, so Ugochi, tell me a bit about what's happening on your side. That's really some of the big stuff. Now, it's been quite a quiet week, which is surprising for Nigeria, as the country may be. But what's been happening on your side?
Well, there was a big announcement today, as I said earlier, that the borders will not be closed. And that's a very big announcement. I mean, important announcement for a lot of people here. Switzerland, over 300,000 migrant workers commute into Switzerland every day, from neighboring countries, from Austria, from Germany, from Italy, so closing the borders would be, I mean, during that major lockdown, workers were allowed to cross the border, they were allowed because, but for people who live here, for example, you live here, you shop in Germany, you work in Switzerland, or you have friends in Basel, it means a lot, for us to all be locked, so you can't cross the borders. So that announcement that said, just for now, the regions close to the borders will not be asked, to
observe the lockdown.
The quarantine, the 10-day quarantine that they're trying to impose in some regions, like Paris now. People from Paris cannot just fly into Switzerland currently, as of from Monday. Without going into a 10-day quarantine. So, but we are excited that for now, our region, we still don't have that issue. So that's a big news. And
but wait, they're saying that does that make sense though? Does it make sense to not go ahead and lock down the whole country? Because we've seen this quarantine here, lockdown here. People escape, people move. Humans find their way to move around. So does it really make sense in the context of a possible second wave of infections to not just go into an absolute second lockdown?
The problem is the economy. The industry suffered so much, many industries suffered a lot, during that lockdown. A lot of people, the government is still paying a lot of people. The French government might be able to pay some people 75% of their salaries till next summer. So it's a huge money that the government is going to spend. Switzerland government was able to give people grants, 0 interest rate, to kickstart their businesses, to continue their business. So that's a lot of money. The European Union earmarked so much money. So the economy is very important. The tourism industry was hardly hit. And that's, they're trying to at least the summer, people traveled, but not as much as they would have loved to travel. A lot of people didn't come from the US. The US has a lot of visitors who come into Europe, and that's the highest number of tourists come from the US. So this time around, the US couldn't come in. So there's been so much losses. The auto industry, so many people lost jobs. So the government is more interested in the economy. They're saying, we're not saying that we may not lock down outrightly, but we're saying that for now, the economy is important, the health is important, but we need to revive the economy. We need to revive, what we've lost over the months because of the coronavirus. The economy is also important. So yeah, it's important to protect people, but for these governments, the economy is very important to them.
Yeah.
And then also, that's the big news, that people can still travel. And then they also said that depending when the limit of 60 new infections per 100,000 people, that's to Switzerland. And you know why a lot of people want, the borders open? Because a lot of people do things in Switzerland, even though they sleep in France. It's Switzerland that a lot of people go to Basel for so many things. And then Swiss people also come over to shop because it's also cheaper to buy things in Germany or France. So for the Swiss people, they don't want these borders closed. They also want it open because they can easily buy cheaper things, in France or in Switzerland. So, it's a win-win situation if things are normal for everybody. If people can be conscious of safety standards, if you can reduce the number of infections, if people can wear their masks, follow the protocols, that's what they are really asking for, to avoid any shutdown of the borders. And also, it's all interconnected. It's all interconnected. So if it happens it could easily spread. Absolutely, it can spread to different parts, and then it keeps increasing. So that's also the worry.
And I wonder if Nigeria has actually hit its first peak or its only peak. Woo! First time happening, and I said it. So this is NEPA. This is what happens. This is our NEPA that has struck. I need to quickly turn on the lights, but I think we'll just wrap things up.
Absolutely.
So, we're so used to it. We're absolutely used to it.
We can still see you.
You can see, of course you can see me. I'm bright lights.
Yeah.
But so when the governor was speaking, he talked about the fact that, of course, that you have a situation where they're still looking to see what's gonna happen, but they know that the economy needs to start recovering. It needs to move. It needs to make some kind of progress. And I just wonder. Well, he said that he believes Nigeria has hit its peak in August. So if we've hit our first peak, our only peak, are we predicted to also have a second wave of infections? What would that look like for us? I remember yesterday I was on social media and I saw that I think India hit the world's highest daily confirmed cases. I think that was 96,000. So you can see that it is still a very hectic situation for other countries, and it just makes you worry and wonder if we're still ready and prepared to what happens next. If a second wave comes, are we ready to lock down? Because some people have said if there's a second wave, there's no point in locking down. I don't even know.
Yeah, that's the same thing people are saying. Apart from the fact that the borders here, families will be cut. They won't be able to see each other. If there is, if the borders are closed again, there is also the countries. They are like brothers and sisters. So when this happened, I saw a report that said, Germany and France, you're my brother, you're my sister. People live, you don't even know where the border is because people are just so they're like, it felt like they lost a relative. For many months they couldn't see each other. So that social impact of this, is also considered in all of this, before they decide if there's going to be a lockdown. I really don't wish. I really don't wish for that to happen.
I don't either.
I'm sure you don't either.
I don't, because the coronavirus or the quarantine weight has refused to leave. I don't either. But if it is what we have to do, I'm one of those who will be pragmatic enough and say that it needs to be done. But also some would accuse me and say, that's because I can make do for the next few months or few weeks. I can store food. I have good lights, good electricity. My life is really not the life of the average Nigerian. And I have to consider that when I say something like, oh, I'm fine with another lockdown. There are many people who would possibly not survive a second lockdown, and it
Yeah.
wouldn't be because of Corona. It wouldn't be
Hmm.
because of COVID. It'd be because of what
Absolutely.
Corona or what COVID is causing, especially in terms of the economic situation. All right. So what else do you have for us? Anything else?
Oh well, so far I think that's all I have for you. And yeah. And then you talk about 9/11.
Yeah, I wanted to say, that's actually how I wanted to start, but it skipped my mind. I know many Americans and many people around the world, because 9/11 didn't just change America, it changed the world. It
Yeah.
changed airport travel, international flights, it changed so many things. And it's always a day for me, I remember, because I was in New York with my sisters the day before. We had gone for a wedding. So we were in New York the day before. We actually were supposed to stay and go to the World Trade Center the day that the center came down. Our uncle was like, "Oh, stay, let me take you sightseeing. We'll go to the World Trade Center." But we all had to resume work the next day. I think it was that Labor Day weekend or whatever. And we had to resume work. So that's how we went back to Nashville. And so me and my sister talk about it, and it feels, even years later, it still feels so surreal. Like
Hmm.
I can still see it. I was getting ready for work. She was in the kitchen. I came out and I saw the first plane. I saw the first plane hit the first tower. And I called her and I said, "Oh, what movie is this?" Because I thought it was the trailer for a movie. It was during the time of either Good Morning America or This Morning, one of the morning shows. And I was like, "Oh, they're showing a new trailer. Sis, what movie is this?" Only then did my mind realize that it was not a movie. And I remember going to work. I used to work at a daycare then. I remember that then they closed US airspace, and there were people who still had to bring their kids to work. So we were outside and everything. But eventually we went inside because fighter jets were flying over. They had closed a lot of the commercial airspace. And it was just really, it's really something I'll never forget. It's really something
Yeah.
I'll never, ever forget.
Yeah. I didn't watch
Yeah.
it live.
What about you?
Yeah, I was in the university then, and the hostel, we didn't have access to the TV sets. So it
Mm.
doesn't quite resonate with me, the events of that
Yeah.
day.
It's
But what happened
separate.
afterwards? Yeah, because
Mm.
we really didn't even know what happened. It was later that we heard about it, and then we saw the videos. It doesn't resonate with me the particular day, but the events after that. I've been to the museum,
Mm.
Washington D.C., where they
The
you would
memorialized.
see, yeah,
Yeah.
you would see, absolutely, you see exactly what happened, the shoes, the war, so
Mm.
many things, so that's a lot of connection. That's how, I felt really, oh my God, this was really, we know it was very terrible, but, going
Yeah.
into that
Yeah.
place, it gave you, so much sense of what this, I'm seeing this life. This is what they were. This is how
Yeah.
the blue, it's really, and then you see the pictures of those who died. I saw the
Mm.
camera, or,
Mm.
the journal, oh my God, Tolu, the camera
Yeah.
of this man who it really hurts, and I'm sure it really hurts for those whose lives were changed
Who
forever.
lost loved
Even in
ones. Yeah.
France as well, the recent news of Charlie Hebdo, the terrorist attack in Paris, and then they
Yeah.
republishing that the cartoons that caused the terrorist attack. So terrorism, and that's the for the world, it was welcome to the world of terrorism. So today is really a sad day for many people across the
It
world,
is. It is. And
Americans.
we just continue to remember those who love lost ones. It's continuing because I know the trial was supposed to happen. The trial of some of those involved was supposed to happen, but it's been postponed. It's having issues because of Corona, expectedly, as it would be. So people have continuously sought for closure, and eventually, I hope one day they will find it, because even as America mourns and the world mourns with America, it changed not only America, it changed a lot of every. Once you were somebody who was an international traveler, if you're a Muslim, if you were of a certain descent, even if you weren't Muslim, so watch lists became so much more popular.
Yeah.
We know the history of Guantanamo Bay after that as well. That's when the U.S. finally they ended up passing the Patriot Act later on. So it changed a lot. It really
Yeah.
changed a lot, and it will
Yeah.
always stand out in people's memories. Okay, Ugochi, I think we'll wrap up on that note. Thank you so much. It's 9 o'clock on the dot by my time, so we've been having this conversation for just about an
1 hour.
hour. Thank you so much for joining me. As I said earlier, Ugochi is new to the HAPS community, so please go and follow her. She is right now based in the border of Switzerland, Germany, and France. So she's going to be having content and stories from there. She'll also be joining me on more of my lives as well. So please don't forget to follow her, interact with her, and engage as well. Ugochi, thank you so much for joining. Thank you to everybody
Thank you
who
so much,
joined.
Tulu.
I saw all the comments. Obem, Matthias, Oval, Egba, I see you. Peter, I see you. Thank you so
Nike
much.
Coca joined as well.
Oh wow. Okay, you're seeing some comments. I'm seeing different comments. I can't see everything. Dale, Josh, unpresidential banana, I guess. Swen. SWSVEN. Swen. Ah,
Sven.
my Nigerian mouth. My
Sven.
Nigerian
Sven.
tongue. Thank you as well for joining us as well. Brett, thank you so much as well. So there'll be another one coming your way next week, Friday. I possibly will do a little bit more during the week, but also this is the end. This is the Nigerian situation. Many of us are used to it. Lights can fluctuate, electricity can fluctuate sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't, depending on where you are. But it's one of those things we've sort of learned to live with. It doesn't phase us anymore, even though we hope for better circumstances. We definitely
Yeah.
do.
Maybe I should turn up my lights for
So
solidarity
you can
sake.
please be in solidarity with me. It's still not. It's okay. That solidarity might be too much. All right, Ugochi, thank you so much again for joining me. I'll
Thank you.
see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Bye bye. Have a fantastic.
Bye.
It's night here, so have a fantastic afternoon on the other
It's
side.
10 p.m.
It's 10
Bye.
p.m. there, so good night to you. Good night to anybody
Good
joining me
night.
from Nigeria, and good afternoon to anybody joining us from the United States. You guys have a fantastic day. Bye.
Bye.